Hello, hello, and welcome to Coffee with Kashey. I'm your host, Dr. Trevor Kashey, and on today's episode, we are discussing 10 ways your brain is wired to be lazy and oversimplify. But why? At first, I had to fix it. And then I realized while I was going on my walks, as I normally do, talking to myself, that maybe instead of fixing it, Dr. Kashey shows you a way to use these hardwired decision-making rules to your advantage instead of falling victim to a self-defense system meant for some time before froyo. Right? On a previous episode of Coffee with Kashey, one reason your brain is wired to be lazy and oversimplify, Dr. Kashey gives you a surface-level rundown of the dual-process cognitive experiential theory made popular by Dr. Daniel Kahneman through his hit book, Thinking Fast and Slow. All right, so let's review a little bit of that to make it fresh. So you bust out a Dr. Kashey's nerd translator, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop. Okay, what in the heck is the dual-process cognitive experiential system? Well, I'm so glad you're asked, I'm going to tell you. Okay, the dual-process system is System 1 and System 2, so-called. Your impulsive System 1 brain, it's fast, it feels automatic, emotional, impulsive, binary. And in an attempt to save time and energy during a threatening situation in a world of black and white, the ugly psychological binary, you employ shortcut thinking, assumptions, biases, gap filling with previous experiences and jumbled memories. That's what we're going to focus on today. Okay. Now, if you neglect your thoughts and be cognitively lazy, your default setting goes to the System 1 impulsive brain faster and faster. You operate this way even when stress and threats are gone, literally teaching yourself to be in and continue to grow your attention deficit. Avoiding a pedestrian in the middle of the road or scoring the winning goal at the last second? Sure. This is when System 1 has your back. Your Type 1 impulsive brain has your back. Depending on this for a satisfying and successful life, I'll let you decide. Although I will state my case, obviously. Okay? Your brain's default setting is to be cognitively lazy and impulsive. Quick and easy, as it were, right? Now, your rational System 2 brain is slow, okay? Reasonable, logical, deliberate, calculating, multi-dimensional. And instead of black and white, okay, instead of binary, the ugly psychological binary, it's shades of gray in Dr. Kashey's beautiful biological continuum, okay? Distractions, stress, physical and mental exhaustion, urgency, emotional arousal, specifically things like anger and depression and those pulls. Central arousal, think of heavy breathing and heart rate, okay? They hamstring your rational System 2 brain. Practically speaking, that means all that stuff, it cripples your intelligence. That's what that means. It cripples your intelligence, okay? Now that it's fresh, Dr. Kashey needs you to ponder the following question. Would you rather do something that has a 100% chance of failing or 1% chance of success? Ponder away while I sip. Okay, maybe when calm, cool, collected, right, the answer feels obvious. Always go for the chance to succeed, right? Always go for the chance to succeed, right? However, when there is stress around a decision, I'm sure you know exactly what it feels like to just stick with what you know, even if what you know is going to fail, okay? People would rather be 100% sure they'll be miserable than 1% sure they'll be happy. Think about that. When categorizing your previous experiences, I'm willing to bet it feels like there's a greater comfort level with a for sure failure than a possible success. Honestly, looking back. And I'm paraphrasing Dr. Virginia Sater here because she sums it perfectly, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, okay? Paraphrasing her, people prefer certain misery over the misery of uncertainty. Restated, a sure thing beats a risk, even when the sure thing hurts you, right? Why is this? Why is this a thing? Why the aversion to progress, even in the face of damning evidence? Maybe your allergy to success is worse than your allergy to frustration, boredom, and anxiety. It sounds stupid when I say it like that, right? But I'm going to defend that position. I'm actually going to defend it, all right? So that you can step back and audit the way you make decisions to build a success allergy tolerance, as it were, all right? And we'll visit that again a little bit later. Dr. Kashey is actually going to defend that position. So I just want to be clear because that's funsies for me, right? Now, when your expectations deviate from reality in a tiny way or a big way, it gets stored in your brain like a wine stain on a white carpet. It's a cognitive toxin if there ever was one. And this is why fostering the resilience response is so important. And I'll make a whole episode on that too soon, I think, in terms of the cognitive stain on the old carpet of red wine, okay? Anyway, after you survive the threat of violated expectations, right, you'll be more prepared to make the decision next time. When there is an expectation to reality mismatch, 5 things happen. I've got the whiteboard of wisdom here. Dr. Kashey's whiteboard of wisdom. Make sure this is in the right order. All right. The first thing that happens after there's an expectation mismatch and following situations that are tangentially related, there's a hesitation to act. Oops, this side. There's a hesitation to act, right? And when you hesitate to act, you scan for threats. You scan yourself, you scan others, you scan the environment. And then you create doubt. That's easy to do. And then categorize that doubt as a threat. And when you categorize something as a threat, you default to that system 1 thinking, right? Step number 4 is you recall and anchor previous bad experiences to further justify your hesitation to act. All right? And as a result of this, you start pooping out depression points. All right? Depressive thinking manifests as a result of the friction from this cognitive looping. So the way I see it, every time you go through this loop of hesitation, scanning, doubt, recall, and anchoring, every time you go through that loop, you create some friction, and that friction is emitted as depressive thinking. Okay? And I'll get into those things specifically in another episode, I think, because a whole bunch of these things are fun and exciting. I can get deep on them. But for now, those are the context clues that should guide you along the way, right? Steps 1 through 4 are the loop, right? And then step 5 is the output. And it perpetuates itself that way, and all these residual depressive thoughts accumulate, right? The more loops you go through, the more depressive thinking emerges. How freaking exhausting, all right? Each time the wheel cranks, friction is generated, and that friction is emitted as depressive thinking. And you go through enough loops, and this depressive thinking turns into a full-blown depression. Or you can skip all that crazy nonsense and rid yourself of the agony and exhaustion by stress guessing. Woo! Right? We discussed that a little bit in a previous episode. And a quick review of that, Dr. Kashey's stress guessing is when you make a decision, an impulsive system 1 brain type decision, so you can stop the agonizing exhaustion from the loop. and even if what was causing the loop was probably the result of one of those impulsive stress guessing decisions. But that's for another time. All right? So here's Dr. Kashey's defense of certain misery, as I'm going to call it, right? At least insofar as why it makes more sense than defending a risky success, right? In the context of this episode. So Dr. Kashey thinks the single most toxic cognition condition is your brain can endure is when your expectations deviate from reality, right? For that reason, you actively alter reality to meet expectations so that you can survive the insane level of pressure and noise, 1, in the world at large, and 2, the world in your head. This is how you stop yourself from and pull yourself away from this chaotic looping. This is also where cognitive biases are important. Yes, I said it, all right? Is it lazy? Yes. Does it oversimplify? Yes. Does it protect you? Yeah, kinda, right? Does learning on this cognitive self-defense system foster success in your life? No, Dr. Kashey doesn't think. All right? It is here, though, where cognitive biases come into play. Ways you eliminate hesitation and increase your certainty, even if it's the perception. And the following are Dr. Kashey's biased and semi-arbitrary interpretations of 10 different cognitive biases, shortcuts, and assumptions. Busting out the whiteboard of wisdom one more time, because it is double-sided whiteboard of wisdom, twice the wisdom, right? So keep an ear out for the ones that are calling out to you. I think this stuff is fun. Think about the shortcuts and assumptions and biases you use to make your life make more sense, reduce anxiety, give you certainty, right? Let Dr. Kashey know in the comments which ones you do. Actually, that's a trick question. You use all of them. Just pick your favorites. How about that? All right. Number 1, overanalyzing. Dr. Kashey's favorite, overanalyzing, right? Waiting for the perfect time and the perfect information to make your risk 0, right? Okay. Number 2, certainty bias, where you're rigid and stubborn, thinking in terms of absolutes instead of probabilities. This can even mean sticking to bad decisions because, well, the decision has been made. And the thought of changing your mind feels worse than dealing with the bad decision, right? Number 3, what I call the karma bias, although this has taken other forms, the just world, things of that nature. Essentially, what goes around comes around. Good things eventually happen to good people, and bad things eventually happen to bad people, and they get what's coming to them, all right? That's a classic one, right? The next one is the completion bias. And this is where there are holes in a story, and you start filling in blanks to feel more comfortable. Well, it's getting awful late. That means her meeting must have ran long. Must. See that certainty in here? The meeting must have run long. Filling in those blanks and giving yourself certainty, relieving anxiety, right? Next, the control bias. Victim or victor. It's quick and easy to take all the blame it's easy to take all the blame for the outcome and all the responsibility for the success, one or the other, right? This is very common in like first responder sort of situations, right? Again, it's quick and easy to take all the blame or zero blame for the outcome of something that happens. Right. Next is the negativity bias. And this is ignoring the possibility of positive outcomes, focusing on negative outcomes in the past, and future negative outcomes will routinely outweigh future positive outcomes. Next is the single-edged sword bias. This is an understanding that, something can go wrong, right? Things can go awry, but maybe you only explore the benefits of an outcome with any depth while blatantly neglecting to weigh the consequences of a poor outcome. However, by thinking this way, you can justify all negative outcomes as unintentional. Okay. Next is the attributional bias, number 8. Mistakes made by other people, they feel like they're on purpose and intended to hurt you. But your mistakes, obviously, those are accidental and definitely the result of the situation. It's all circumstantial. Next is the dismissal of anomaly bias. This is probably one that appeals to me a lot, okay? And this is ignoring something that happens out of the norm just because it's out of the norm and defaulting to a simpler and or more obvious explanation of what's happening, right? Next is the outcome bias. Dr. Kashey thinks this is the nastiest one of them all, right? And this is judging the validity of a decision, judging the validity of a person based on a result rather than the reason, logic, and evidence that the decision was based on. This means that you reward stupid decisions that turn out well. It means you end up punishing good decisions that maybe turn out poorly. The best decision can have a poor outcome, and in cosmic accidents, horrible decisions can result in good outcomes. Now, for the bonus. There's a bonus here. A little bonus in red. Survivorship bias, because as I was thinking about the outcome bias, the survivorship bias kind of end up shooting out here. So it's a survivor, all right, as it were. And this is, remember the cosmic accidents, right? Crappy decisions can result in cosmic accidents with great outcomes. And some people, unfortunately, cite these miraculous stories as evidence of a reasonable decision-making platform. If this happened to one person, then it can happen to me, all right? So let's summarize here. Craving for certainty is partly why it's easier to make a decision that's 100% likely to fail than it is to make a decision that is 1% likely to succeed. This is both damning and freeing, I think. Damning because you can get stuck in a rut, and freeing because Dr. Kashey can help you repurpose these cognitive shortcuts to get you out of it, right? So here's what we learned. A review of the impulsive system 1 brain and the irrational system 2 brain. That violated expectations are the supreme toxin to your cognitive computer, fostering risk aversion and depressive thinking. And oddly enough, that's why it makes a ton of sense to go with certain misery instead of miserable uncertainty. You use, we use, everyone uses cognitive biases, assumptions, and shortcuts to prevent, stop, and interrupt this looping. Because although changing the world is impossible, changing how you see the world is possible. And there's your big hint. There's the big hint, right? Too low of a tolerance for risk, and you develop an allergy to success. Grow your tolerance via self-coaching and through graded exposure to controlled failures, thereby fostering your resilience response. It's a systematic way to learn from mistakes, and otherwise to put those experiences on the biological continuum, right? Boiled down, you crave certainty, I crave certainty, we all crave certainty. And waving a magic wand and changing the world is impossible. For that reason, it is sensical to modify how you see the world. And this is exactly what you do. From the outside, though, it's easy to see how these sorts of ways to modify the world can be ugly and damaging. However, what you soon come to realize is that you can hijack this exact same machinery to work in your favor. And that is what Dr. Kashey is all about. So in conclusion here, this is why coaching yourself is so important. You can use graded exposure to build a tolerance to your to build a tolerance to your allergy to success, right? Opening up the top while also protecting the bottom, right? And analyzing controlled exposures to failure, where you understanding the worst case scenario is tolerable, right? That's how you end up doing. And this positions you to inform future decisions. In other words, you can weaponize the preference to choose certain failure by managing your expectations about how that failure helps you to succeed. This, in so many words, embodies Dr. Kashey's resilience response. So if you're interested in honing your rational brain, then let Dr. Kashey know by sending him a message and leaving him a comment. He gets back to all of them. Dr. Kashey is out! Oh, you're still here. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to the channel. Want to learn more? Follow the link in the description and ask anything you darn well please, because all of the videos are inspired by viewers like you. Have an awesome day.